Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to Play It Paint It Live. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Sunday evening. Here we go with another one of these. All right, so tonight we're going to be painting some blacksmiths. And if you guys were watching some of the previous streams we had on the 4.3 errata, you can see I did some work here on, hold on, waiting room. I did some work here on this blacksmith. But hey, what's up, Nelson?
Hello there.
And it looks okay, but as you go into, I'll show you some of the other ones I've been working on, right? And then here's Culverin. Again, the color scheme looks okay. It's not the most exciting color scheme. But what's really getting me is as you go into the rest of the team, there's rookie Ferrite. As you get into the rest of the team, and one of the colors is really starting to bug me. And we'll see it here in a minute.
I'm sorry, is that the new blacksmith team, Octave?
It's not a new team. It's just I just put together a blacksmiths team for fun. What's bugging me, I think, is the pink. The pink just looks odd. And as you go into, I guess it's gonna look really, where it looks really weird is here. But I'll have to paint the rest of her. I'll have to paint the rest of Hearth to really determine if that's true or not.
I think it's pretty cool so far. I like the first two models you presented. Those look like pirates. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're supposed to look like pirates, and that color scheme looks cool as pirate. Here's Bolt. Bolt has no pink on him, and you can see it's a really nice, clean look here on Bolt. Kind of digging this kid. So he's looking cool. I just don't know if the pink is working or not. Maybe if I took the pink off of cast, I don't know. I guess she's okay. I think it's almost the gold and the pink center cornrow that she has. It almost kind of looks like there's curlers in her hair now. She kind of looks like she's like the angry mom. Get inside! What are you doing out there? She looks a little angry.
Sounds about right.
Oh, Alexa thought I was talking to her. Here's Vet Cinder. You can see Vet Cinder has no pink on her, and she looks pretty sharp. Not much complaints there. So we'll see. So yeah, I have two players to go. It's going to be Hearth and Ferris, who I put this blonde stripe in the middle. I don't know. I was just feeling like, oh, let's do goofy stuff with their hair. I may just go with standard hair though, because it's looking a little goofy. So, oh, if you want to sit here, kiddo, let's get you a chair. Somebody is not going to bed. He's gonna hang out with us for a little bit. Yeah, come on in.
And speaking of blacksmiths, if you watched one of the earlier episodes that I did, I painted the original blacksmiths.
You did paint the original blacksmiths. Okay. So we're gonna block out the colors on this model, and there's a lot of color to block out here. All right.
Hey, Octave.
Yep.
Where are you getting these tufts? Because I've noticed CQ is kind of slowed down on their, well, at least their distributors, I suppose. But I've been having issues finding tufts.
Yeah, I had stockpiled for a little bit because do you need more? I had thought about putting tufts on that last set.
Oh no, don't worry. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if I should have been putting tufts on those.
no,
On the horses, I was like, I'll put tufts on the horses. But
yeah, no.
yeah, I was getting them from CQ and just stockpiling.
Yeah, they're pretty hard to come by. Like even from before all this crap that happened.
Yeah,
I asked Yvonne a couple of times, and I was like, it's kind of weird how like it's really hard to find tufts. Even at I mean, Brookhart's Hobby have them, but they don't always carry the Army Painter set ones either. And I love the Army Painter set ones because they're pretty cost efficient.
right. So yeah, I was just stockpiling. Like Yvonne's pretty good at telling me when she knows stuff that I stockpile. So she just tells me this is in. Okay, I want
She's
it.
your insider.
Yeah, she knows what I want from the store, so she'll keep it for me.
That's legit.
All right, so yeah, I'm just not. I don't know if I'm feeling that
Hello,
that
where you going?
pink or not. We'll see. Are you doing any painting tonight? Just hanging?
No, I was gonna do it, but I'm just hanging out.
Oh, that's cool. That's all good.
Just another week of lots of work ahead of me. So
Me too.
kind of bummed out about that. It's already Sunday night. Gosh.
Yeah. So I got to get up bright and early tomorrow and open my lab back up.
Oh, that's right. You're heading back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean tomorrow.
So I'm gonna get in bright and early, open up the lab, gonna sanitize everything, and then we're gonna tackle a week here like nothing happened. Although we have all these new work procedures now for spacing. Yeah, which is good. I'm glad. I just think it's there's gonna be. I'm looking at all these changes we're doing to our everyday lives now, and there's a lot of this stuff will never go away now. I think some of this sanitation stuff will just never go away. Certain things will go away. Hopefully the face masks in public will go away at some point. But I don't think it'll go away anytime soon. But that's
Yeah.
probably something that will go away. But like all the massive amounts of hand washing and sanitizing, that's probably not going to go away.
Well,
And
it
then
shouldn't go away.
and then spacing. I think social distancing at work is just going to become probably just going to become a new workplace practice.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be the new normal. I don't think that's a bad thing either. It's kind of nice because I think what it's going to do is I think hopefully businesses are going to look at this and and go, well, do we really need an office full of 600 people now? Couldn't we just do there's certain jobs that people can telecommute for.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see some of that too. Well, this model is kind of a pain to paint. I got to get.
Yeah, in my
gotta-
opinion, that's probably for the best.
Yeah, for sure. I got to get underneath all that.
Yeah, and it's harder because there's like armor on like some kind of fabric.
Yeah, I got to get underneath all that armor. You're right. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's just it's interesting that we'll. Oh hey, what's up? Albert's in the chat. Can't Zoom, but it can sit in chat. Glad to hear you're both working. Won't go away until they find a viable vaccine. Yeah, I think even after the vaccine, though, I think I think that the virus will. We'll have a vaccine for it, but the virus will regularly mutate. By the time we're at full infection, there may be several different strains, and it may just be like the flu, right, where you get a yearly flu shot and then you get a yearly coronavirus shot. by the time a vaccine is in place. That's again, I'm just guessing out of thin air that, based on the rate of infection and all of that it may end up being a more regular thing. And hopefully we'll look back and go, hey man, remember that crazy year when that shit first started? Yeah, man. And you can't, you wanted to, I had the saddest dream the other night, like a week ago. I had a dream. It was so vivid. I had a dream that I was at Comic Quest playing a game, and with another live person, and my friends were all like, there was a certain friend of mine can stand close to me, right? And I was like, wow, like, and in the dream I'm like, wow, I missed this. Like it had ended abruptly, right? And I'm like, wow, I missed this. and it was so, like, it felt so vivid and so real. And I woke up and I was like, wow, that's sad. Like I love having my family with me, but at the same time, it's like that dream felt so real. Like it was so, I guess it was so comfortable back in the days to just go to CQ, pick up a game, set it up, and just have people hanging out with you while you're playing. That's like, I guess it's almost like you took it for granted. I took it for granted that when we had that, the ability to do that. What do you think, kiddo? Is that sad?
Kind of.
It's kind of sad, isn't it? It's like when you're. Do you miss playing with your friends out on the playground and stuff?
Kind of.
Yeah, I bet you do, kiddo. But you're still stoked because you don't have to go back to school for the rest of the year. You were celebrating the other night. You were happy.
No,
The night that mom told you? Oh, that's nice. Are you still happy about it? Yeah, you're still happy about it. When I was a little kid your age, I lived on the other side of the country, and they had these things called snow days. Okay, if there's too much snow, fell overnight, and you wake up in the morning and it was too difficult to get your car out of the snow, and it was dangerous for the buses to drive around, you would listen to the radio. You'd turn on the radio in the morning and you listen, and it would tell you which schools were closed for the day. And you would listen to that radio, and you would be hoping for dear life that your school would be called on the radio. And you could tell in the neighborhood when your school was called, you could hear all your neighbor kids go, yay! Everyone in the neighborhood cheered. And then all at once, all the doors would open and all the kids would roll out, and they'd have their sleds, because you have to get up, like in the morning when you're going to school, you have to get up and you have to put on all your clothes, and you have to put on, see, we lived in snow. You've never really been in like real snow. And you'd have to put on these big thick jackets that span your entire body. It was like a onesie. It had legs. It had the legs, and it went all the way up, and it had a pullover hood. And you would wear a jacket underneath that too. And underneath that, you would wear your clothes. So you'd have like 4 layers of clothes on, plus your snow boots, plus your gloves, plus a beanie and something over your face. You'd be totally covered except for your eyes. So in the morning, you would get ready. You would get all dressed up and ready like that. Then you turn the radio on. And then as soon as they called your school, you were already dressed up. You could just go outside and play in the snow.
That doesn't make sense. If it's not at snow days, you stay inside.
Well, yeah, but little kids in those days, they let us do stuff. It wasn't the safest, okay? I'm just saying. Like, they would just If it was a snow day, all the kids would go outside and we'd all play in the snow until the sun went down. And our parents wouldn't even go looking for us. Nobody would be freaked out. These days, if you're gone for like an hour, hell, 15 minutes. If I can't see you for 15 minutes, I'm calling the police. That's how freaked out I am. Right?
Maybe.
Where's my cat? There was one time when you were at Chuck E. Cheese and you were running around with your friends, and me and your mom lost you for almost 5 minutes, and we were freaking out.
Wait, was it the old one?
It was the old Chuck E. Cheese. I think it was that night that your school was there. Your school was at Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh yeah.
And you were running around with your friends, and for a while we were like, oh, it's fine, he's running around with his friends. And then you disappeared for a little bit. Like, we had a hard time finding you, and then we freaked out a little bit, and then we found you.
Where did you find me?
Your mom found you. You're running around with your friends. But yeah. So anyways, so your school closing would be like a snow day that lasted the whole year. That would be crazy.
Yeah, imagine if that will happen to
Yeah.
That would be so fun.
Yeah. But the only problem is it's super fun, but you can't go anywhere, right? Like, you don't have school for the rest of the year, but like, it's not like we can go to the zoo or we can't go to SeaWorld or any of that stuff right now. So that's kind of a bummer. Anyway, just painting this dude.
You know, I've always wondered too, since you got your kids like annual pass or whatever it is for these theme parks. Now, since the theme parks are shut down, do they even reimburse you, or it's just like, okay, it's your loss?
You know, let me tell you how lucky I am.
Yeah.
The old pass, we so far this year we had only renewed 2 passes. We renewed Knott's Berry Farm and we renewed SeaWorld.
Okay.
And so we didn't renew the zoo. We haven't renewed Learning Cube yet. Who else? What other passes do we have? We didn't renew Santa Ana Zoo. So there's a bunch of passes we didn't renew. So we're not really losing. I don't know. I gotta find out if your school is gonna refund the lunch money I put in. Remember the week that you went out, I put in $150 in your lunch money. So we gotta see but even if they don't refund it, it's still good for next year. So you're fine. Even if they say, oh no, we'll just hold it for next year.
Oh, so they
Not
have
that
some
big a
kind
deal.
of rollover program.
Well, it's a credit on your kids. It's credited to your kid's school ID. So it should be good for as long as they go to that school.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I was literally just about to buy what was it, one of the top tier Disneyland pass, because I still haven't been to the Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
And then the week I was literally about to buy it, that's when we actually got the mandatory quarantine, and that's when Disney announced closing down. I was like, oh wow, almost dumped $1,500 into that.
Oh man, $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up, buddy?
Disney annual pass.
Oh, that was an old base. I took a model off of that. Man, that's $1,500 for a Disneyland pass these days. Jeez.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The last time I bought a pass for Disneyland, it cost $200. That's how long ago it was that I had a pass for Disneyland. It had to be like 10 or 15 years ago.
That was when I was really young.
No, son, it was before you were born. I had a Disneyland pass.
But when we went, did you?
Oh yeah, when we used to go, but we didn't have a pass. We just got tickets from your grandma's work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when you're in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and I kept singing singing "It's a Small World" over and over.
Yeah, that drove a bunch of people crazy. Singing, little kid. It was cute for the first 5 minutes, and then he kept singing. Yeah. Let's see. Disneyland, he paid it full. Mine expired a week into the closure, so they'll give me that extra week. For people who pay monthly, they can pause payment. Oh, okay.
Nice.
That's crazy, man. Like you have to make a monthly payment to Disneyland. Man, I don't know if you guys heard my other rant. Was it on this channel? No, saying
yeah, it was.
Disney is the most
Yeah.
evil.
Cause remember they removed
Go ahead.
the Gigantosaurus.
Yeah, because my kid wants to watch Gigantosaurus.
Yeah, they removed it from Disney Plus, and we've never found it ever again.
Yeah,
We lost it.
yeah. Disney's evil, and they ruin everything they touch, basically, right?
Yeah, and
That was the lesson for the day. Mhm.
the lesson is
Never
buy
trust
anything.
Disney.
Damn.
Yeah.
If you ever see a mouse doll, then rip it.
Oh, geez, no. Because Disney will charge you $4,000 if you break a Mickey Mouse doll. They'll say that they own the rights to ripping off a doll's head because they own some movie franchise that you never
And
heard
they
of.
keep stealing stuff. Remember? They stole Star Wars and they stole Marvel, right?
Yeah, they bought Star Wars and Marvel. Jeez, kid, you got a good memory. Yeah, be careful. I remember all the rants.
And Star Wars and Marvel were like really good movies, I think.
They weren't bad. They weren't
They
bad.
weren't bad. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of either of those franchises particularly, but they're good. They're decent.
It's gone downhill, that's for sure.
See, Albert he still likes Disney. All right. It's okay. When the Disney Gestapo come for us, I'll tell people I'm friends with Albert, who is a fan of Disney. So
Disney Gestapo.
when they come for me, when I'm the last person on earth that does not like any Disney franchises, they'll come after me. The scientists will say he is immune to the programming, and they'll come after me. The glitch in the matrix. Stop him.
Okay. So what will they do, you think?
What will they do to me?
Do you think they'll pick her
No, they're gonna. What they'll do is they'll.
break in?
First, they'll send a bunch of people to sing at my face until I get hooked on all the Disney songs. They'll sing like "Let It Go" from Frozen
That's horrible.
because it gets stuck in your. It's like an earworm. You know what an earworm is? It gets stuck in your ear and you keep singing it. They're gonna try to do that to me. They're gonna be these really like peppy, upbeat people with permanent smiles on their faces and they're dead behind the eyes. And what do you mean you don't like Disney? Well, golly willikers, Disney is the happiest place on earth. And they'll chase me like zombies. And they'll start singing at me.
Why don't you show them Jeff
They'll sing
then?
what?
And go
Why don't you
brainwash.
show them Jeff?
They're gonna hold me down. Disney buys out Wizards of the Coast and mess with TNT. Okay, so Albert does have a limit. See, the strain isn't perfect yet. they haven't perfected.
Yeah, he needs to go back.
He's got
What
Jeff
was
right
it?
now.
Daily dose of brainwashing.
I know people. I do know adults like that are fully addicted to anything Disney does. Is just perfect in their eyes. They just, I know this guy that I think he's like a couple years older than me. He's not married, no kids, and he would every week on Facebook, he would post a selfie picture at Disneyland. Just by himself. He would just go to Disneyland And then he would just have Disneyland behind him and take a picture of himself. And he would post a different one every week. Here I am, back at Disneyland. And we're like, what the hell? What do you even do by yourself at Disneyland once a week? There had to be more to that story, but he loved Disney that much. Disney could do no wrong. And I remember because one time we were gaming with that guy and I was talking all kinds of trash about Disney and he got so upset. And I was like, what? I'm not allowed to dislike your empire? And he just freaked out on me. Good thing I destroyed him in Malifaux and he cried real tears. It was awesome. Anyways, that guy, just Disney could do no wrong.
Oh my gosh.
And you know what? Some of your mommy's friends too. They love Disney. They love Disney to that point where it's like they can do no wrong. Wow. Just wow. When you think about that, like, wow. How do you?
Speaking of Disney, what if Disney watches your channel?
Oh, well, they will if it ever got big enough. They would watch it. Susan would make sure. She would tell them.
Who's Susan?
Susan is the CEO of YouTube. She would tell them. It would be like They Live. We've got one who can see. And they would come after me. They'd be talking into their watches.
What if they
And I would
actually
go into Disneyland and I would go, I came here to chew bubble gum and to tell you you're all bad. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
Wait, what
That's
if
a
start
They Live
fighting you?
reference.
What if they start fighting you when they come in the house? Like, what if they bring like weapons with them?
They wouldn't. You know what they would do?
What?
They would clone you and the rest of the family and wait for you guys to leave the house. And I would come home and I would think it's my family. It would look just like you. And you'd go, Daddy, what's up, kiddo? And he'd go, Daddy, how come you don't love Disney?
Oh,
What?
gosh.
Yeah, Dad. I was really sick. I almost died, but Disney saved my life. How come you don't love Disney?
This could
What are you
be a
talking
horror
about?
film.
Dad, haven't you watched the new Disney movie? And then Darius would come downstairs and instead of picking up a dinosaur, he would pick up a Disney toy.
Yeah, we already have a Disney.
Yeah, he would pick up a Disney toy and he would say, Elsa, Anna. And I'm like, you don't even like Frozen. And he would look at me, Disney. And I would go, what is going on here?
And then mom would be
And then, yeah, and your mom would come
and
downstairs.
she would be like, I'm done
She'd
with
go,
being in the garage.
Yeah, she would go, you know what? If you don't like Disney, you don't belong in this house. What?
And then they would push you out.
And they would push me out the window.
And then you
And I would
come out.
try to get Ramses. I would try to save the cat, and it would turn out it was a mouse. Man, this is a frightening world
And then
that we've
and
just
then your
entered.
real family would come out, and then I would just call 911.
You would call 911 and they would say, Disney Emergency Services, what's your issue? Dun! Right? Disney bought 911? That's right. Disney bought 911. And you could have unlimited 911 if you pay $12.99 a month. What?
And then I would just grab the baton
Mm-hmm.
from down here.
Yep.
We should totally make a TV series off of that.
The Walking Disney.
Yeah, right.
And there would be it would be like scrawled on like this hospital door in
And
blood. It
imagine
would
it-
say Disney inside.
and then-
Disney inside.
and then our bodies would be ripped out outside.
Oh man, it would be so bad.
And then the cat
There's Nelson, have you ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
What is that?
there was an old, I guess it was a 1960s film originally, and then they redid it in the 70s, and then they redid it in the Invasion of the Body. When's the last time they redid Invasion of the Body Snatchers? I want to say it was in the 90s or early 2000s, where basically these aliens came down to Earth, and they would kidnap people. They would kidnap people, and then they would make clones of those people they kidnapped and just replace. They were slowly replacing everybody on Earth, and the main character was slowly discovering that everybody in his life was being replaced. Is that scary enough for you? No?
That's not too scary.
That's pretty scary, man.
That's actually pretty scary by the time you.
It's
if it
pretty
does happen in
scary,
real life,
dude. I would be pretty scared.
Okay, I guess you have a point.
because I mean, you wouldn't be able to find out who's actually doing it, if that does happen.
Like Albert says, and then you see the Statue of Liberty toppled over the beach.
And then imagine.
And then it says, and then it got replaced by a Mickey Mouse statue
The Mickey
holding
Mouse
up a DVD.
that says,
You did it! You blew it up!
and then there would be a bunch of tanks coming.
A bunch of tanks.
Yeah, and then there would be around the statue. And then once you get there, they drop grenades everywhere.
Oh, jeez.
And then you would have to
But see, son,
jump on.
Disney would never drop grenades. They would lose a subscriber if they did that. It would cost too much money, and they don't own the rights to grenades anyway.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't operate that way.
They would shoot though, right?
No. They would just make me either try to silence me and then replace me, or they would definitely try to brainwash me first.
What does that mean? Take out your brain?
Basically condition my brain to really just love Disney.
Or they would or they would replace, or they would get rid of all the channels on the TVs, and they would put only Disney on it. Imagine if that happened.
That's their plan. They're already working on that, man. Soon everything will be Disney.
That means
Did Disney acquire DC yet? Did DC
that would be impossible.
No?
Yeah, that would be impossible.
Why is that impossible?
Because I would just pretty much monopolize everything for the comic book industry. Because they acquire Marvel.
But just the film studio. They didn't, because they didn't buy Marvel. I don't think they bought the Marvel Comics division. Oh, they did, didn't they? Yeah, they own the comics
I think
division.
they own everything, even include Fox now. So that's why people are saying
They own Fox now, yeah.
Yeah, like what are you gonna do to the Alien franchise? Luckily, Ripley was already a female badass, or else they would have changed that from a male to a female too, right? So.
Well, they've already kind of wrecked that franchise anyways with that last movie.
Yeah, the last two wasn't like Prometheus supposed to be great, but didn't do that well, and the last one was pretty terrible too. It didn't really answer anything, created more issues.
They killed John Connor in like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh, you're talking about Terminator?
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
I'm
sorry,
talking about Alien.
I skipped the franchise. Yeah, I guess they haven't fully ruined Alien yet.
Aliens?
Yeah.
Movie?
Yeah, the movie franchise we're talking about.
Oh.
Wow.
You can't watch any of those yet.
Yeah.
Those are too scary.
I thought you were talking about Terminator.
Jose, all this talk of body snatching makes me want to watch They Live. I know They Live is like the best movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen that movie, go out and watch that movie. It's awesome. That's basically They Live is how I view the entire world. It would take too much work to revive that film series. Oh, you're talking. Yeah, the Alien franchise is kind of in bad shape anyway. It's not in the best shape, but there's hope for it.
But it looks.
Yeah, I think the problem with the Alien franchise is they couldn't decide if they were going to continue with the Ripley story or not, and they made some honest efforts to.
Wait, Disney made Aliens?
No,
Oh, they took it.
they own it right now.
They stole it.
They bought it.
They bought it.
Yeah, they own it now because they bought Fox.
What have they done?
So, but they haven't done anything with it yet, right?
What have they done?
Nothing yet.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're just saying rhetorical. What have they done?
I'm saying like.
The Aliens universe is actually pretty damn interesting.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting setting. You know, the whole Weyland Yutani and
the part that they get raped, their face gets.
Wayland.
Yeah.
Industries, yeah.
It's
They had
a
a good
cool. I think it's a cool setting, and you know they have the engineers and all that.
And then
Yeah.
It's cool.
It was just very rushed. It wasn't
executed
executed properly.
If I had to watch
Hold on, Octavius.
So.
What were
No,
you
you're right. No, it's really. I think they just rushed it, and whatever reason, all the time that this whole time James Cameron had, he was. I don't know what happened to it. He kind of butchered it. Maybe his head got too big or something because he was concentrated on making Avatar.
Yeah,
and
he kind of lost his way with Alien. I think you're right. Like he had great ideas with Alien out of the gate, and then maybe Avatar kind of wrecked his train of thought or something.
Yeah, and he was boasting about how Avatar will be here by this year now, and Avatar 3 will soon follow, and everyone's like,
Aliens RPG fleshed out a lot of the setting as far as humans go. Thanks, Jose. Okay, Avatar's another movie that I absolutely hated.
Really?
Hated Avatar. I felt like Avatar is part of the reason why society is so stupid right now.
Just Pocahontas?
Because
Alien Pocahontas. That's about it.
Yeah, but I think it kind of gave everybody that sort of social justice feeling of righteousness, right? Avatar was like, it was like, oh man, what if, all the people that feel guilty about, what the colonists and the early Americans did to Native Americans watched Avatar, and it was like, oh, see, now I feel better. And then they started pulling that shit in real life, like trying to beat everyone down with their guilt. And it was like, yeah, man, I watched Avatar. I know what just is. And I don't know. I just feel like that was the start of the end for this, which is really the beginning of the social justice movement. See, Albert, also not a fan of Avatar. It just made me like it. There were parts of it that I thought were cool, but it felt very. It felt very. What's the word I'm looking for? Wish fulfillment for white people, basically. That's what I thought Avatar was. It was like, would it be great if we could just not feel guilty about all this stuff that our ancestors did? I'm like, how about you just not feel guilty about the stuff your ancestors did? No, I'm an Avatar. You see. That was my main problem with Avatar. It just, and I'm like, wait. At the end of the movie, he gets to just be one. So so it's like it's kind of like Dances with Wolves, right? Dances with Wolves and many of the other, we'll call them the white savior films of the late the late 80s to the early 2000s were basically, okay, the formula was, okay, there's these people and the white people are the bad guys in the movie, but there's this one white guy who saves. So the only way to stop the white people is to have a white person. That was and same with Avatar. The only way to stop the humans was to enlist a human.
They were humans, though.
Okay. What?
But they were humans. as well.
No, there was the alien race, and they were getting beat up by the humans, the human colonists, and there were some people, there were other humans that were like, no, this ain't right, and they had this program, and to basically to infiltrate them by having this other, by having another human take on the body of one. But anyways, I did not like Avatar. Could not stand that movie. All right, should we talk about other popular franchises that I hate? Because it's like most of them. Yeah, don't like Star Wars. Keep going. Let's see if like like is there a major movie franchise I do like? Well, I think there's hope for Ghostbusters because we're gonna undo the 2016 Ghostbusters. You didn't really like the second Ghostbusters? Most people didn't like the second Ghostbusters. The second Ghostbusters, I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was nearly as good as the first one. And then when you saw the 2016 Ghostbusters, we were praying to get that Ghostbusters 2 back. But yeah, I think there's hope for that franchise though. We'll see what they do with the. I just don't. I guess I don't know. There's certain. How about Star Trek? Let's see. I liked for Star Trek. You have to love Wrath of Khan because it's one of the best movies ever made. I liked Wrath of Khan. Did not like the rest of the original cast movies. I did like the original series. And then you could say the opposite about TNG. I liked the Next Generation. I thought that TNG show was decent, but the movies were annoying. And in general, I think Star Trek is just kind of meh. Other than Khan, it never really grabbed me. Kirk was cool, whatever. I liked Mr. Chekhov because he's just ridiculous. I like some of the characters on that show. In TNG, Picard was a cool character, obviously. The show Picard looks terrible. I'm not sure why they do that now. They bring all these like legendary characters back to get the fans back, and then they immediately try to hand it off to somebody that you don't give a shit about. But yes, there is another Ghostbusters coming out, Jose, which is why I'm saying they can actually fix the franchise. Like they could put it back on a good course if they.
A lot of Ghostbusters have already come out.
Yeah. No, there've only been 3 movies and a video game. Really, for Ghostbusters.
Video.
Can you close that?
Where's the video game?
The video game? I think it's a PC game. I don't know. Let's see. Other franchises. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's a man. I don't know, man. Is there a modern day franchise that I like? I don't know. I would say the closest thing there is to a modern day franchise that I like, I guess it would be John Wick, which I just sort of find entertaining, but I'm not like, I don't think there are people that are like, there aren't John Wick conventions yet. You know what I mean? People aren't, idiots on BuzzFeed aren't, jizzing their pants over a set of John Wick socks, There isn't that kind of shitty level of fandom yet. But I don't think there would be for John Wick. I don't think, even though it's a movie franchise, I don't think it doesn't attract those types of fans really. People are like, oh man, I just got myself the John Wick electric toothbrush stand. That they don't. It's not to that. It's not a thing. But a lot of these franchises that we're talking about, son, it is like that. Where, and I've said this before, like these days the modern definition of nerd is somebody that just owns some franchise related, you know, product like that. So I don't know. I'm sure there are franchises I like. I just have to think of them.
What about Matrix? I'm actually waiting for Matrix.
Oh yeah, the new Matrix movie.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see what they do. I'm just intrigued. We'll see if I like it. You know, that's one of those that I think it would be very, very easy to screw up. But if they pull it off, then you're basically Matrix for life.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I remember I hated Matrix Revolutions when I saw it in the theater. Hated that movie. And then when I watched it back, you know, some years later and actually had time to process everything, and try to understand it a little bit better, then I really liked the movie.
It was really deep, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really deep. It was, it was
a construct. What is the job of an engineer?
Yeah. What? It was very, very ambitious, and it lost people in the theaters because it just wasn't
we didn't
enough,
understand what they meant.
We didn't have enough time really to understand what they were talking about. By the time you get to the conversation, you know, with the with what's his name, with the maker, or what's the guy's name? You know what I'm talking about.
Keanu Reeves or Wachowski brothers?
No. In the movie. No. There's the Oracle and the engineer, I think is his name.
Right.
Yeah. By the time you get to that point in the movie, the architect, there you go. Mm-hmm. By the time you get to that point in the movie and he's explaining everything, your brain is already kind of mush from the kind of philosophical stuff that happens with the Merovingian. Then you get the ridiculous all the new Smith stuff that's happening in that movie. So by the time you get to the point where they're explaining the most important concept in the movie, you're already on a different lesson plan, and you can't process this whole new philosophical dilemma that they put in front of you. And by the time you hear it, you're like, shit, that's already way too much, dude. I'm just sitting in the movie. Can we just go back to I know Kung Fu? Can he just stop the bullets in midair? So you have to, that's the type of movie that you need actual time to, you need time to just digest all of it, because there's more themes in that one movie than there are in the other two movies combined. Easily. There's like more philosophy in that second movie than there is in pretty much the next 20 movies you'll watch. And you just can't, in the theater, you're just tone deaf by the time any of those conversations happen. And you're like, what? He saved Trinity? Like, you don't even understand what just happened. Like, oh God, I get it. He likes the girl. Fine. He can matrix the bullets out of her and then massage her heart back into starting. We get it, right? But you don't understand you don't understand the moral dilemma that he has to conquer to even just get to that point. So
Definitely
I'm
a lot
very
of things.
I'm very curious to see the new Matrix movie, and hopefully I think it can be good for sure. It's interesting that they're bringing, you know, Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss back. That's going to be weird. You know, are they? So some people are theorizing that the gray matrix, you know, the sunless world that they lived in, is basically a second layer of the matrix, and that they hadn't actually entered real life. You know what I mean? Dream within a dream.
Yeah, kind of like what the architect was explaining. Because when the
Yeah.
architect said, like, you think you're the only, like, pretty much you're the one. It's like, well, I know I'm the one. And then he showed him on TV how many the one within that universe. No,
Yeah,
all
and
different screens.
that the one is actually is manufactured by the Matrix now to as a means to reset the whole thing. It's like, oh, every now and then we need to reset it because the human condition cannot accept that much contentment. Humans just aren't designed to be that, you know, that content and that complacent all the time. So they had to introduce the concept of you know, a revolution against the machines and the chosen one. And he, you know, by the time he came, I guess the first iteration was a programming mistake, and then they realized that it's actually useful to reset the matrix every so often. So then they started programming him in. So it's like, yeah, there's going to be a rebellion. It's basically, it's like a computer updating itself, and he's the catalyst for it. But it's interesting that in the next movie, yeah, one of the one theory I think that was probably going to hold the most water is the idea that that matrix that they were fighting for is also still just a matrix. So they haven't made it to their physical bodies yet. That would be interesting.
That
But
would be
also,
very.
yeah. But the other thing too, though, is that they are, if they're, you know, if they are looking to franchise the movie further, which I assume they would be, they're gonna have to hand off the baton, right? Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss are gonna have to hand it over to two other people that we don't give a shit about. Just like every other franchise. This is the one problem with all of these franchises. They you know, nobody has figured out how to hand off a franchise from the main character to a new generation character. Right?
Yeah, I don't exactly know though.
You know, it's interesting. Like if even animation, they can't do it. Even anime, they can't do it. If you guys, for you DBZ fans, right? The whole idea for the Cell Saga was that they were gonna kill off Goku permanently and hand the reins of the franchise over to Gohan. That was the whole point. Why Gohan is the guy that defeats Cell, blah blah blah. We know you can do it, kid. He has his big moment on the show.
Are you taking the Dragon Ball?
Yes. And they couldn't do it. The fans were too into Goku. They'd followed him for too long. They don't want Gohan to be the next Goku. They want Goku to be the next Goku. Same goes with Transformers. If you remember Transformers the movie, they had Optimus Prime. He dies in the movie, which is probably the best animated movie you'll ever see in your entire life. Transformers the movie. Watch that shit.
Yeah.
So Optimus Prime dies, and he's supposed to hand over the reins to Rodimus Prime. So they tried to do it. They did it in the movie. Judd Nelson takes over, and then the next season on TV, they come back and Rodimus Prime is in charge, and none of the kids want to watch that shit. We want Optimus Prime back, right? So they had to bring Optimus Prime back from the dead like 2 or 3 times, just because you can't I can't think of a franchise that they've successfully handed off to another character that was just as good and just as popular as the original. You guys help me out. If you guys can think of one, awesome. I cannot think of one.
No, I can definitely.
I'm gonna think here, like more instances of. See, so Star Trek: The Next Generation, it was not really a handoff. It was just, we're starting over with all these other characters, and we're going to make a totally different show with a totally different tone. And they really focused on making these characters deep and believable and sympathetic. So you had, the closest you had to Kirk in TNG was Riker. But Picard is a very different captain than Kirk was, and that was intentional because you're not supposed to look at Picard and think Kirk. They're very different captains, and Star Trek did it a bunch of times with all the different captains in the different series. But even then, it's not like there was an episode where Kirk parks the Enterprise, gets off, and then he like high fives Picard. All right, my ship now. That would not fly at all. Like they had to let that series die on air, do a couple of movies, and then several years later come back and say, hey, we're doing Star Trek. We're doing a new generation of Star Trek. And and nerds were still, whether or not people remember this, nerds were still very much up in arms when that shit first came out. You can't replace Kirk. No, you can't. And they're all freaked out. And then when they got to know and got to like this Picard guy, then a lot of them were like, I like this Picard guy better. And all the Kirk nerds freaked out. They lost their minds. And that's history. Still thinking, is there one? Is there? I don't know. You guys tell me if you can think of one. Awesome. If not, I stand by my you cannot hand. I think you can do it, but I think it requires an incredible feat of writing and acting to do it, because you have to, it's like explaining to your, oh gosh, my kid is in the room here. It's like explaining to your kids, this is your new mommy or something like that, right? Don't worry, you're not getting a new mommy. And that's the fandom, though. You have to prep them for it. They have to be emotionally ready to deal with it. I don't know. Anyways, I think that the silence in the chat is due to people trying to think of a franchise that was actually. I'm not talking about successfully rebooted. I'm talking about handed off, because most people agree that handing off a franchise is the best way to continue a franchise. But we also have to acknowledge that that's extremely difficult and that no one has ever really done it.
Yeah, Star Wars tried and failed because the writers couldn't. Jar Jar Abrams and Roundhead Johnson couldn't figure out the best way to write Luke Skywalker. It's like
they couldn't write, period. They just couldn't write. They had bad ideas for everything. They didn't have the new trilogy characters. seemed like they had good opening premises, right? Especially Finn. You're like, oh wow, he's basically a deserted stormtrooper.
That's Nazi.
That's a great premise for a character. And then he just turned out to be nothing. He just was not. They did not bother to make him very interesting. And the one time he was gonna be interesting, he got stopped by Miss Kwan.
An
Miss
Asian
Kwan!
driver.
Yeah, Asian driving ruined his Star Wars development.
Yeah, everyone thought
He
that
was
his moment to shine, and a freaking Asian lady crashed into him.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was trying to park at the 99 Ranch, and there she comes in the gold Camry. Knock him off course. This is my parking space. And just destroyed him on his way there.
Yeah, and some stupid thing that Rose Tico said. It's not about like saving or killing. Well, no, not about killing the ones that we hate. It's about saving the ones we love. And because of her action, led to more people dying, and Luke Skywalker ended up dying because of that. It's like, who came up with this storyline? Come on.
I mean, if you got hit, if you were flying a vehicle full speed and you got hit by another vehicle, would you not think that that person was trying to kill you? Even you would be. I would get like, it's about saving. It's not about killing what you hate. I'm like, bitch, you almost killed me. What you could have we could have both died. What? Anyway, oh, there's an angry comment from Alaric Harrison. When your main character is a Mary Sue, there's no room in the story for any interesting characters. Well, yeah, that's pretty true. I don't know. I know that like bitching about Star Wars is like a full-time career for a lot of other YouTube channels. And they're much better at it than I am. What we're really talking about is how do you hand off a franchise? Because that was like the whole point of the new trilogy is people were excited. It's like I don't think anyone assumed that Luke and Leia and Han would be at holding hands at the end of this last trilogy. I don't think anybody was expecting that. I think a lot of people realistically were expecting that most or all of them would end up dying. So we were expecting that too. The problem is they didn't have, like you were kind of alluding to, Nelson. They didn't have good send-offs. They weren't the fans didn't think that those characters were treated respectfully. And then we had these new characters kind of just shoved in our faces that we're supposed to love automatically for really no reason. Right? You're supposed to be rooting for Rey, and it's completely unearned. And and I know you've probably heard that 4,000 times on YouTube when everyone says, yeah, Rey's heroism and her heroic moments are completely unearned.
That's why they're trying to retcon that in episode 9.
It's because they tried, but even then, you just don't. At no point, and this is the problem with all of these new woke movies is you at no point are you ever worried about certain people based on their gender and or race. You're like, oh, this person is the appropriate gender and color. They're going to be fine. Oh, look, a white guy. That's a bad guy. Like it's very, very stupid. And it's dumbed down to that level, and you can't, you're not threatened by any of it. Look at the First Order. They're not threatening. When is anyone afraid of the First Order? Yeah, they blew up an entire solar system in the first chapter, but you're not threatened by them. At no point you're not. You're just like what? you know, and they kind of purposely try to present them that way, that these are just a bunch of angry internet man babies. So nobody finds that threatening. You know, that's the villain, and you know that you're gonna put in. More angry comments. Well, first they waited way too freaking long to do sequel. Blame Lucas. Woke makes everything predictable and boring. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
clearly, if it's, you could do all that race and gender stuff you want in movies. That's not the problem. The problem is, I'm gonna just phrase this in a very different way than you guys might be used to hearing. The problem is the people who are writing said characters are the actual racists. Okay, so stay with me here. The people who are actually writing, oh, you know, they don't say we're gonna create this new hero. They don't even start that way. They start with the full-blown body and chassis of a racist, meaning I'm gonna pick a race and I'm gonna pick a gender. And then if we're lucky, there's a character in there. If that isn't racism, I don't know what the hell is, right? Because they didn't even bother. They're not even bothering to do anything. And then when they start telling their story, you realize that these writers can't even identify with what they're trying to portray, right? If you look at the best, let's look at some of the you know, the most famous female heroes in film and entertainment history, right? Those characters work because the writing understands that they face a particular level of struggle, and they actually take the audience through that struggle with them. You look at Ripley, right? Her power, yeah, she's a chick who blasts a bunch of aliens with a flamethrower and a pulse rifle and a freaking forklift. But if you look at her struggle and her energy all throughout every single Aliens movie, it comes from a very female empathetic point of view, especially Aliens, right? It's a very maternal, she goes through a very maternal struggle there, working with Newt, saving Newt, coming back to rescue Newt, fighting for Newt's life, right? You can't portray that, and it's one of these instances where her gender is actually paramount to the intensity of the movie, if that makes sense, right? Think about if Ripley was a man in Aliens and Ripley was going back to save Newt, you would expect that. And this is our gender norms, right? You can be as upset about this as you want. I don't give a shit. We would expect a man to do that. We would expect a man to fully come back and you know, and that struggle is very different. Now it's like, okay, this guy better be, if you're rooting for a man in that exact same scenario, you're thinking that dude had better be a freaking badass. Okay, when we see a man go into a scenario like that, we're like, okay, this guy's going to be brave. He's got to be a badass. He's got to be ready to lay down and die. And there's a lot of movies. There's very common in movies where the male protagonist has to sacrifice himself at the very end to save his family or whatever, right? Now, if you put yourself in, now, if that was a man going in, that's your mindset. The mindset of going in with Ripley specifically is like, oh shit, this is an untrained soldier who is her hands are shaking, she's taping the guns together, and you could tell she's freaking terrified. She is scared out of her freaking gourd, but she's so desperate to save the little girl that it really only works because she's a female. It really only works because you're like, wow, that is terror right there. That is fear, because if a guy dies, you're like, fuck it. You're like, it's a soldier, he died. You know, he's okay, cool, he didn't make it, whatever. You know, like when let's contrast that with the end of They Live. And I know I told you guys to watch They Live, but spoiler alert, Uh, anyways, when Roddy Piper goes down at the end of They Live and he dies and he's got his middle finger in the air, you're like, yeah, that's the sacrificial male, right? He was a badass. He came to kick ass and chew gum, and he is all out of gum, and he did his job, and he went down and died. And it's a very different feeling than when you're rooting for a female protagonist like a Ripley, because you're like, oh my God, I'm scared shitless because this character is scared. And at no point with any of these new female characters, you get none of that. You get none of that because the people writing them are sexist and racist, and they're afraid of actually putting them in any real danger. That's the problem. They cannot. It's those, okay, it's like those guys that have never touched women before. How it's simp basically, right? You worship them to the point where you're like, oh no, not my loving darling, she's perfect at everything, she's a beauty. Those are the creepiest effing dudes in the world. Stay away from those dudes. Right? That's what I'm saying. Those are the guys writing these movies. Okay, they're the racists, they're the sexists, those are the people that are doing this crap. But it's, you can, like I said, though, you can do really, yeah, I think there should be more. Obviously, I would love to see more females and, POCs. I hate that term, but you know what I mean. You want to see more of that in movies because there's the potential to make the struggle or the intensity very different than, your typical action hero or your typical horror movie hero or heroine, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's Sarah Connor. Remember,
it's
she went through the exact same thing fighting the T-800 and T-1000.
yeah. It's, and then, if you look at Game of Thrones, I know, which don't watch the last 3 seasons of Game of Thrones. Anyways, if you look at Game of Thrones, one of probably my favorite character in the whole series is uh Brienne of Tarth, who is a female knight. She's a giant lady. She's very strong. She's an excellent fighter. She's proven herself. But when you watch her fight the Hound, it's one of the best scenes I think in the entire series is her fight with the Hound. Not just because of the cool fight scene itself, not because of the action, but if you listen to the way the Hound is fighting and attacking her, he's got that typical like angry murderous kind of roar going with him, right? And meanwhile she's screaming and swinging like every swing is her life is on the line. And it is and you simply cannot do that if it's two men fighting like that. You can't do that. And it brings such a it just brings such a deeper dimension to the whole fight, and it makes the whole character much cooler. So definitely it would be great to do this stuff, but the people writing it have to not be worthless pieces of shit, basically. That's the only way to put that. You can't be a complete live in a bubble loser that's never seen a woman before, that's never seen a woman struggle before, or never seen somebody with outside of their own background in a struggle, in a fight, in that kind of thing. Let's see. Overall, not a good movie, but a man wouldn't have been an interesting, predictable, but a woman like Ripley, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And the other main thing that you're missing in all of these things is you're missing character development, right? Before you even worry about what's between the character's legs and what color their skin is, you just have to be able to write a good character. And they can't even do that. They can't even develop a good character. I've said this many times. Like at the end of episode 7, you are meant to believe that Finn and Poe are best friends, right? And I think they had, maybe 8 minutes of screen time together, and you're just supposed to assume that they're best friends. That's a problem. That's a huge problem with writing these days. Anytime they have a cast of characters, they don't take the time to actually build the relationships and show you through example why these people are bonded. They just they put the two characters on screen and they physically come out and tell you these guys are best friends. These two people are in love with each other. These two people are arch enemies, and they never really explain, or they never demonstrate, I should say. They try to explain, but they don't really demonstrate. So what? Yeah, but that's a major problem. And then you're trying, and then so you can't develop a character to begin with, and then you're sort of foisting this, this quote unquote diversity character in there. It's even worse. Like, we'd rather not have representation in the movies, if I'm being honest with you. Anyways, let's see. Okay. What's the matter, kiddo? You going to bed?
I'm getting water.
Oh, you're getting water. Okay.
I already told you I'm thirsty.
Oh, okay. Yep. I don't know. Is there any franchise I like? Whew. Going back to that. Man, I got barely any painting done. Sorry. We'll get back to it. But yeah, they could make, I think you could make some really interesting stories with the quote unquote diverse characters. They physically lack the ability or the understanding to do it. Whoa, that's bad. All right. This character is a pain in the ass to paint, as you can see, because she's just a pile of weapons. Lord of the Rings. Okay. Yeah, I do like Lord of the Rings, but and I think Lord of the Rings, even then, Lord of the Rings, fantastic franchise. Obviously, it's a completed work. It's a completed fictional work, so they didn't have the Game of Thrones problem with running out of source material, and it was put out at a time where there really wasn't all that much social justice injected into movies. They really just kind of their main concern was telling a good story out of the source material that they had available. Now, contrast that when they go into Hobbit, and the failings around the Hobbit were a lot of that was around, trying, because the Hobbit felt more like we're going to try to milk that franchise and that sort of thing. But yeah, Lord of the Rings is great. I think if they were ever to come back to Middle Earth for some reason, I would be terrified. I'd be like, yeah, okay, that franchise is now dead.
Well, they're actually making Lord of the Rings TV series.
Okay, but I mean, if it's still using the same source material, that should be okay.
Right.
The one,
I'm just afraid that it's going to be taken over by SJWs.
oh, that's a legitimate concern. I would be the one thing that I'm interested in that no one has really done. Let's say no one's done the best job with so far. The property that I think is really cool is Dune. I'm a big Dune fan, but I recognize that that would be an extremely difficult, and that has proven to be an extremely difficult set of novels to depict. They're making a Dune. I think it's a movie, right? They're making a Dune movie. And there's a lot of hype around it and a lot of buzz going on with it. I'm always curious whenever they make a Dune movie. Now, I did actually like the 1986 Cal MacLachlan one. And as goofy as that was, I still watch that movie. Like when it's on TV or Netflix or whatever, I will still watch Dune because I like Dune. I think it's I read the original book and was reading some of the other books and still follow it a little bit and really like that story. So we'll see. Maybe the Dune franchise might be a good franchise to look out for. By the time you get to God Emperor of Dune, which is, easily the most interesting, but probably I can't even conceive how they can do that on a screen and be convincing without looking completely ridiculous. That should be an interesting one. Any other Dune fans here in the chat? One thing about the sequels, they made the prequels look fantastic. Now, granted, I was in my 20s when the prequels came out. Were you talking Star Wars? I think. And I went to the theaters and watched the prequels, and I was pissed the minute I walked out of the theater for episode 1. I was so mad. Hated Jar Jar Binks. Hated the stupid Welch's grape jelly kid that swore he was Anakin Skywalker. Hated that whole. Thought it was creepy. Natalie Portman is flirting with him at the end of the movie. Just completely disappointed. And I know a lot of you guys were in more formative years when the prequels were coming out, so you guys have fonder memories of that. But I had much fonder memories of my trilogy growing up, which was the original trilogy. To which you say, okay, boomer. Dune could be great, isn't? Yeah. Prequel series. Oh, cool. Yeah, Dune is just really interesting. It's a really interesting universe. It has a really, really, I think the author has a really, really interesting take on human nature and society and how he portrays it in specifically how it all kind of comes to a head in God Emperor of Dune. Really interesting stuff. Watch on YouTube channel Quinn's. I was watching him since he was called Ideas of Ice and Fire, and back when Quinn had like 3,000 subscribers. I was watching him from back then. Loved his Dune series. Also like his Game of Thrones. He would do his own Game of Thrones reviews and stuff. Yeah, I love that channel. And I was watching it for the longest time, and I'm like, why doesn't this channel have like 300,000 subscribers? And now it does. Great channel. I remember like one of my favorite things about that channel is after Game of Thrones, I'm guaranteed I could turn on that channel, especially post season 5, and listen to this guy bitch about how bad Game of Thrones is. That was awesome. Loved that. Great channel. Go watch it. It's called Quinn's Ideas, I guess. I think you could still find it if you're in YouTube and you look up Ideas of Ice and Fire, because that was the original name of that channel. But he does cover a lot of different like sci-fi series as well. But yeah, very, very good recommendation. I would totally concur with that. I think it's one of the better channels to watch. Okay. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing on this model. Okay. Let's just keep going. These models take a lot longer to paint just because they have so much stuff on them. But yeah, excited for Dune. I heard that they're remaking Starship Troopers. Here, can you shut the door?
Okay.
Thanks, buddy. They're remaking Starship Troopers, and I guess the intent is to stay closer to the source material, which is going to make it a very, very different show. So that has my attention as well, because the original Starship Troopers, the main character is Filipino. So it's Juan Rico, not Johnny Rico, and he is Filipino, and we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they even do it, right? If it even manifests. The Dune movie will be a two-parter. Hopefully, director does well. Oh, cool. I could see that being a two-part movie. I think that the first, obviously, the first book is palatable for a theatrical audience, and depending on how invested your audience gets, then the second movie, comes into play. I would be curious to see how far they go into, how far they could potentially go into the book series, right? How many of the novels they could actually cover. That'd be interesting. But yeah, Dune is cool. And yeah, his platoon's also Filipino. That's awesome. I remember, Jose, we talked about just doing our own version of that, of Starship Troopers, just finding a bunch of Filipinos to smoke cigarettes and point with their lips. And then we would have Starship Troopers. Oh, shoot. I should actually... I don't know, is there anything else that I would be interested in watching? I would like to see, personally, I would love to see more medieval Japan stuff make it to film. Those kinds of movies would be interesting to me. And then, and this is going to be controversial opinion, but I still think that we need to keep trying to make a good anime live action adaptation. I'm holding out hope that one day we can make a good one. One day. I thought Death Note was going to be so good that we had a real chance of making something good there. And well, no. Sad times.
Most enemies are really over the top. I think that's why it's really hard to make into live screen movies or big screen movies.
Right, which is why I thought Death Note had a shot, because Death Note it's very psychological, unlike a lot of animes. Like it has a demon in it, but it does not require much in terms of CGI or effects at all. It's much more of a cerebral thriller, and it really does require good writing and good acting. But it is something that I thought that they have real potential to make a good mini series out of. Right, I do agree with the format that it should be a mini series. Or they could do the HBO route and make several seasons of it. So Octavius, can you shut the door again, please?
Oh, wait, how did it
I think the cat opened it. So Death Note would have been an interesting one. I think what's the name of that? Shoot. I'm trying to remember the name of the anime. Let me see if you guys can help me out. It was Psych something. Psycho. It was, oh man. It was basically kind of like futuristic thought crime type stuff. And they had these they had weapons, they had guns that wouldn't fire unless you're unless psychologically you were in a proper frame of mind, then your weapon would work. You guys know what I'm talking about. Psycho something. Psycho Crusher. I want to say Psycho Crusher. I know that's wrong. That's a Street Fighter move. Jose knows this one. It's the Psycho Police. I think that one would make a very good live action adaptation because again, it does not throw that much high fantasy at you to where it's overbearing. Man, I'll remember the name of that one. But there's some that you could do. There's a lot of the Psychopaths. There you go. Thanks, Jose. I knew Jose would know that. Psychopaths. I think they could make a decent live action out of. Black Lagoon they could do, I think. Black Lagoon basically they're gonna do I know this has been in the works for like 10 years or in the rumor mill for 10 years or more. Cowboy Bebop. I'm nervous about that one. Eternal Champion Elric Saga. Elric would be cool. I'm nervous about the Cowboy Bebop one because that is another like really well done, beloved franchise. Would not require much from, I mean, totally technologically feasible with what modern studios can do today. 100% feasible. The problem is going to be writing and acting again. Right? We want them to make these stories because they had really good writing and acting in them. They had amazing character development in the case of Cowboy Bebop. But a modern day studio, they can't even develop a Star Wars character, and they actually gave a shit when they made those movies, sort of. Can they do that with I don't know, this strange Japanese land? I don't know if like a studio would be respectful of a franchise enough to to do a good job on Spike Spiegel and the rest of the crew there. Great show though. Great show. Excellent, right? Like I would love to see that adapted. I wouldn't want to see a movie again. I would rather it be a we'll call it 2 seasons in a movie. Then you have actual Cowboy Bebop in that case. I think people would come out in droves to watch that though. Even people who aren't fans of the property but just realize how much respect and love that franchise has, people would come out to watch that. Anybody else? So we got Elric, the Elric saga, which would be very, very interesting to watch, I think. And again, there's another one. It's more high fantasy, but again, well within reach with what we could do with modern cinema stuff. Here's this little blonde skunk stripe in the middle is bugging me. I'm gonna take it off for now. It's just paint. We can always put it back in. It's just bugging me. Taking that off. Bugging me. This is a lot of NMM to do. Lots and lots of it. What's the matter, buddy?
So thirsty.
Oh, geez, just give me that. Just ask.
I didn't.
Just ask. Well, you were talking over me anyway. What's the difference? You just, there you go, kiddo. There's a They Live Assault on Cable 54 board game on Kickstarter. Yes. Does it have minis? First question I ask for any board game. Does it have minis? I've been looking for another game that we can stream. Was going to do Arena Rex tonight, actually, because I have the arena set up behind me. But got lazy.
No, I was wondering what happened to that.
I got lazy. I'm like, I don't want to have to like comb through rules, refresh all of that, and then we're gonna do it because I already painted all the terrain and whatnot. So we're gonna do it. I just need to not be. This is my first day back tomorrow, so I'm like, I didn't want to get into too big of an effort today, if that makes sense. But I want to do that God tier. Let's see, no minis, but it has the shades. They do something with the car. Dang it. Need minis.
Dad,
What's up, buddy?
speaking of games, what if we could we do a new Marvel game on stream?
Yes, but it'll be a while before I have any of that built or painted.
Yeah.
You can blame Nelson and his Walking Dead. Just kidding.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no. It's been like 3 commissions in a row after that. Sorry about that.
No, dude. Don't even worry about it. I'm just messing. That's Octavius. That's gonna be that's a little ways down the road. We still have a lot of other stuff to paint.
Like what?
And there's plenty of games to play. Well, for one, my Blacksmiths team, gonna paint these guys. You got a farmers team to paint.
I have the farmer's team.
You have.
I have this one to paint.
We started playing Shadows of Brimstone.
But I don't have to paint.
I can't believe I didn't think of teaching you Shadows of Brimstone earlier. That's a perfect game for you and I to play while we're all locked up like this.
Okay, how about this? I'll show
And I have Judgmental Uncle.
1, 2. You already painted him. 1, 2, 3.
No, I'm just saying it's a great reason for me to play.
6, 7. I have like 7 models. What does 7 plus 6 make?
13.
And I have 13 models to paint.
Yeah, that's a lot of models, dude. We got a lot of stuff to work on, kiddo. We're not just gonna jump into Crisis Protocol. That's a late summer thing, if I'm being honest with you, Octavius. That's when we're really digging towards the bottom of the barrel here. I bought that as an emergency.
What do you mean an emergency?
Like,
This game?
yeah, like if times got desperate and we were really out of stuff. You got me wanting to start paying my
When you get
Well, you're in, assuming you're in one of the states that's on lockdown, which, I got a 90% chance of being right there. What else have you got to do? Been flying. That's why I painted that Arena Rex, painted an entire Coliseum, because I'm like, well, this has been on the to-do list for a couple of years. Let's just do it. And Nelson is also happy that I've been able to crank out a bunch of his stuff.
Thanks to you. Where else a lot of my stuff wouldn't have been painted, just sitting there. Great plastic.
It's the one thing. I was like, that's why I'm half bummed about going back to work tomorrow, because I'm like, man, if I was doing my job at home, I could maintain this speed and just keep going. What's up, buddy?
I think personally you have more models to paint than I do.
Oh, yes, of course, Daddy has more paint, more models to paint than you do.
Because of Bronze Tiger.
Because of Bronze Tiger?
Probably.
I'm less interested in painting him now that I have the board game one done. The board game one is so awesome.
Maybe you could look at them.
We need to play that. We need to play that.
What should I play?
Well, you said you like Deathstroke.
Oh yeah.
So we could play the Suicide Squad missions and you could play Deathstroke.
Yeah, that could be one of my anti-heroes.
Yeah.
So you have to have 3 from each.
What
group.
brand of paints do I use? I use basically everything. The paints I have the most of are Vallejo and Reaper, but I tend to favor Citadel washes. Right now I'm using Citadel contrast paints, and I also use P3 inks. So I use a bit of everything. I like. There's usually something I like about every range. Recently, I tried out the Scale 75 skin tones. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed in their skin tones. This model is Ferris from the Guild Ball Blacksmiths Guild.
Yeah.
So I'm painting a whole Blacksmiths team. Not a whole team, actually. It's just part of a team.
Yeah, it's just 2 characters.
I'm painting. This is basically a waifu team that I'm making.
You're making it yourself.
So this would be like a team that I want to play for a couple of weeks, and then this becomes a team that I use to teach people how to play. Because I think, because this is like, it's kind of like Masons, where you get a good mix of everything and it's a good balanced play style. So since you're too lazy to Google what are washes and what are inks, okay. Inks and washes are both very thin. They're very thin. We'll call them semi-translucent paint, meaning you can still see the color of what you're painting below, right? Right now I'm using a contrast paint, which is essentially a glaze, but I'm using it like a wash. So when you use a wash for things, you're trying to get shadow. So a wash is thin enough so I can see the color underneath, but it's designed to put some color down and then give you a little bit of shadow. And ink is going to do a similar thing, except inks tend to be way stronger, like they're way more potent than this. And you can do a lot of really interesting things with inks, whereas washes are a little less versatile. Like this is what you do with a wash. With an ink, I would have the option of thinning it to a point where I could use the ink like a wash, or I could use the ink like a very targeted undercoat or shadow, or I could use it as a tint, and you can tint the whole model, meaning you're going to drop an entire lens of color on top of the other lens of color. And it's really the ink. The main thing with the ink is that it's just going to be way more potent than the wash. All right, so we're going to let that dry for just a second here. And I guess while this is going, I'm going to start doing some highlighting. Now, so because inks are a little more versatile, they're also a little less intuitive to use. You can screw up when you're using an ink. The potential to screw up is a little higher than it is on a wash because your color intensity is so strong. So a lot of people don't use inks, or they don't recognize the difference. So washes are very common, whereas inks are not as common. But inks are fantastic paint, and I've always encouraged people to try out inks. Inks, you could do so many cool things with inks. I would say one of the things that I try to teach people how to use is specifically mixing inks with glaze medium, because you can do some really cool stuff with inks and glaze medium. You know, if you wanted to do a really nice liner, like let's say you're working on a stormtrooper or something like that, and you want to get all these little crevices down in here. Let's say I wanted to get these crevices down in here, but I didn't want to tone the
Like this construction.
not quite that one.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't want to tone the top, right? Let's say I wanted to just kind of keep this fairly light and just get really sharp lines underneath. That's where you could do something like mix an ink. In this case, I would use a P3 Armor Wash, which is one of my favorite inks of all time. Hey, what's up, Sean? And mix that with a little glaze medium. The glaze medium is going to continue to thin out the ink a little bit. It's also going to help keep the ink open so that it stays wet long enough to put it exactly where you want it. And so you could mix those two things, and it actually makes for a very nice little liner. You know, if you want to have a quick liner to do this kind of work, you can mix an ink and a glaze. I do it all the time, and it's a really nice, you know, I guess I call it a cheat, but it's really not. Right now I'm just putting a little bit blue tinge on the metal here. I will mix inks with washes, get the desired effect. Yep. I mean, you can, I think that's really where, you know, painting gets really fun, is playing around with stuff like that and finding out new things that you can do, especially with, I'm a big fan of using inks. You can also airbrush inks and get some really cool effects as well. But P3 inks specifically, I love. Vallejo inks are okay. They're decent. You know, if you don't have access to P3 inks, but P3 inks are great. Probably one of the most underrated things about the P3 line of paints is how good their inks are. Their flesh wash is great. Their armor wash is great. They have a blazing ink, which is fantastic for fire effects. They have Piggy Purple, which is a really nice purple ink. So there's lots of cool stuff. All right. Did I just go too heavy here? I did. That's okay. All right, let's start highlighting some of this gold. Again, I just jump all over the place. So I go from contrast paints to, this is Reaper NMM gold base. And I was talking to Albert a little bit about the difference in paint lines. He was asking me specifically about Army Painter and my opinion on Army Painter. I think they're decent paints. I call them kind of mediocre, because areas where paints tend to be weak, yellows, reds, and then specifically serviceable blacks and metallics, they don't do particularly well. They're just sort of, we'll say, average. But they're, you know, like I said, they're not bad. They're decent. When you start to know different lines do things very well. Reaper has a lot of cool stuff. I like their flesh tones specifically. They also have Reaper paints tend to have flow improver in them, which makes them, when you're first working with the paints, it can be tricky to figure out how you want to thin these, because they flow out pretty well, but you are going to want to thin, just like any paint, you are going to want to thin them. But they make some they make some very good paints. Their high def line is pretty good, but I do like specific paints. I will say that the Reaper blacks and their whites are kind of terrible. So that's where I stick with Vallejo. Vallejo Model Black is one of the best blacks out there. And I swear by it. I use Vallejo Model Black for a lot of things. So it's just like, I don't know, it's just, you just get experience with different lines, and then you find out what you like and what you don't like in each line. But there's kind of a home for everybody, as far as I've seen. So I'm not terribly brand loyal. There's usually something I like about every line of paint. The Army Painter D&D set is actually a really nice set. If you are new to painting, it's a good price. You get all the basics in there. Army Painter paints are, I will say that in general, they don't flow as well as some of these other lines do. But it's not, if you're a new painter or if you're not doing anything, particularly challenging, then you may not even notice. But I always encourage people, like, yes, go look at inks, because very few people use inks, and they're just fantastic. You can do so many cool things with them. All right. There is a lot of this gold to cover. But this is some of the fun part right here for me anyways, is doing this type of stuff. I love putting kind of the shading and the highlights down to get effects that I want, that I'm looking for. And it's really fun when you get the lighting down right, and it's behaving exactly like you hoped it would. That's when painting gets super fun. You're like, oh man, like I totally just saw this little blacksmith symbol here on the face of the horse. Just saw that wake up. I like doing stuff like this. Super fun. This is the third or fourth Blacksmiths team I painted. I don't remember what, but I've been toying with the idea of doing a waifu team for about a year now. I was like, what would the waifu team look like for Blacksmiths? Would it be a fun team? And just so happens, post errata, that the Blacksmiths waifu team is semi-viable in my book. Lol, a slug was bumming a ride off. You had a slug on you? Holy crap. Yuck.
In real life?
Yeah,
Oh,
you had a slug on him.
that happened to me as well.
You had a slug on you? When was that, kiddo?
It was like it was a long time ago.
Long time ago?
Yeah, it was like far from when this happened.
Oh.
Yeah, because it was with a.
Oh.
We were in that little area down by the balcony, and we were looking, and he was looking under the pots, and he got a slug on his hand, and then he flipped it on my head.
So Sean is pointing out that this is my fourth Blacksmiths team. So that sounds about right. I don't know.
Why?
Some of you guys know better than I do how many of these I've done.
I don't know any of how many you've done.
You don't know.
Yeah, because I'm young.
That sounds about right. I think this is the 4th Blacksmiths team. I haven't been all that creative with the color schemes though on the previous ones. Previous Blacksmiths teams are all pretty much iron and steel. And I was going to do like a copper one, but Sean did a copper one and he did such an awesome job. I was like, okay, I don't want to copy his cool copper team. So I'll do one that's a really kind of heavily burnished gold here. Well, I have slugs in my gecko tank and my geckos hate them and they don't eat them. So
you kill them.
So I kill them because they were not. We didn't. My wife put a plant in there and didn't
And
realize it had
slugs.
slugs on it. So we have
And the
slugs.
are laying eggs, but what if we just take out the plant?
If we take out the plants and eventually the slug will die, but the geckos love that plant.
What if we take it out for a while? Then how about we take off the slug? The eggs. The slug eggs.
I think the eggs are too small for us.
What if you just?
Yeah. Well, I would have done an NMM copper, which is kind of cool because I would dive more into red effects, if that makes sense, because you're doing copper. You're gonna get a lot of reds and oranges and really cool, even greens you can do. Okay, so that's your baseline highlight with the NMM gold base. Now here's the fun part. Now we're gonna do the actual lighting, right? So here now we're back in Vallejo, so we take ice yellow. We're gonna do, this is where you actually get to pick a little of this lighting. And that middle stage, you could carry that out as long as you wanted. In other words, you could keep doing more layers of that, going up, and then at the same time going down. And I'll show you one down step from here. But first, I'm gonna take that ice yellow and I'm just gonna do tiny little points of light. Tiny little points of light, right? Right, this is one of those steps where less is more. But you're just you do enough of this to kind of trick the viewer into thinking, wow, there's just a really neat little point of light here and here. And you do enough of this on the model. And you see how you just kind of do big gaps. Point here, point there. And you see how that's starting to, it's starting to swing on you, swing. Well, this is the fun part of doing NMM, doing this part. And you're just gonna pick little tiny dots. It's just tricking your eye into thinking that there's cool shit going on there. And eventually you kind of, this is where it takes a little bit of practice just knowing where you want to put the little dots. But once you get it, once you kind of get your own scheme down and it makes sense to you, it's just like, it really is a lot of fun to do this. I know NMM has kind of fallen out of fashion with the pro painters, right? A lot of people are over NMM. It's like an old look now. I still think it's fun. I just like the whole idea that it's tricking your eye. It's like you really are thinking that something is shining off there. And it's most effective where you see how I have this this dark here. There's a really dark shadow right next to that point of light. That's where it really is the most effective looking. And so you want to do this enough to catch people's eyes, but you don't want it to overpower the objects that you're lighting. Again, this is like some of the most fun you have doing these style models, right? Sometimes you're tempted to do the entire edge. Don't do the entire edge. You can do a lot of the edge in some cases, but really you're just convincing people that there's a little swing going on right there. Swing. And like I said, it's those middle stages that kind of differentiate a really, really, like this is a pretty bare bones basic NMM technique here, but you could really tone this up or down and make this as impressive as you like. You can also, if you wanted to, if you really want like perfect gradients, you could break out the 0.15 airbrush and do gradients and then come back and do this lighting step. But you have to pair that with extra, you have to pair it with extra washing. So the more convincingly I do the light and the dark, the better this effect comes out.
Wait, Dad?
Yep.
Did we have to paint my fire elements?
We did.
Oh. I thought they were just.
I painted them. No, I just hit them with some ghost tints.
What's ghost tints?
Ghost tints are like, it's like an airbrush tone. You fire them out of the airbrush, and they, in that case, it kept the fire elemental nice and transparent, but it gave it that cool yellow orange look.
So you can still kind of see through it?
Mm-hmm. Ghost tints are also very, very cool. I think later in the day I'm going to rewatch a video to understand how to do this. It's pretty simple. I did this with contrast paint mostly.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty simple.
I can tell this is going to be a long stream.
Oh no, I'm getting pretty close to finishing this model.
But the old lady's on the.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna finish the old lady tonight.
Yeah,
I'll work on her later.
well,
I got
the
stuck painting this one.
Yeah, you're but you said that You would paint. You would finish Steal the Lady before Ferris.
I thought I would, but the old lady is boring to paint on stream. This is much cooler to paint. Much cooler to paint this. It's just more interesting. She actually has a form that you can follow. Hearth has got she's just way too busy.
Yeah, and she has too much stuff on her, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. She's too busy. She's got too much stuff on her.
Dad?
Yep.
Why is there like candy on the table?
I don't know. Did you bring that?
No.
I didn't put that candy there.
I never put it there though.
Well, I didn't.
I didn't.
Well, who knows who did that then? I don't even like candy. I think your brother left that there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get it.
So,
Hold on, let me go upstairs, okay?
sure. Okay. And then here's another thing you can do. Let's say we really want to exaggerate this NMM look a little bit more. Let me get a little bit more light going. Again, the whole point of this is you want really light lights and you want really dark darks. And that's what sells the whole look. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is you can take either a super, super dark umber, or in this case, I'm going to just take armor wash. Oh, wait, before I do the armor wash, I'm going to do a really light on the steel bits. So let's get that going. So I'm going to do the same thing on the steel bits, but I'm going to do a little bit more because this is, and I'm actually just using white this time. Right. So just white on the very edges. Okay. Especially sharp edges, very important to get the leading edges of these points. Right. That helps kind of sell the look as well. And you don't have to cut, you don't have to hit the entire edge. You're just trying to get what's the lightest part. Right. And then you may do part of the chain. All right. And once again, less is more. Just trying to get, and it still looks a little sloppy, but we will fix that very shortly here. Right. Again, I'm just trying to play with your eyesight a little bit. Trying to get you to believe things that are not true. Right? I'm the fake news of painting. Yes, that's right. I'm about to CNN this bitch right here. That is right. Forgot, I thought maybe you had dropped, Nelson. I hadn't heard from you in a while. Whoa. Oh, screwed that up. Screwed that up a little bit. That's okay. If you screw it up a little bit, it's okay. Because this next step is gonna make this, all of this make sense, or at least try to.
I just can't believe the whole week flew by quick.
Yeah, it's pretty quick week. This week, I don't know. I feel like this week is probably going to last a month. This week is going to be a long week, I feel. I think we're in for a rough one. Octavius, can you shut that, please? All right. Okay, anything else that I missed? We'll do a couple of points here. I know it's late, son. We're almost done.
Alexa, what's the time?
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock, big kiddo. I'm going to get up in about 5 hours.
That means tomorrow.
All right, so now we got that. Now we're going to do the armor wash. And I'm going to start with a very generous coat here on this thing. It's basically just going to blend the blue and the white and all that together so that the blue becomes more understated in there, right? It starts to just, so it looks more like you just have a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a tone there. Ugh, that one is, this blue right here is just too strong. I don't know. And then here, I'm going to get, so I can target specific areas of the gold where I really want that burnished look to stand out. Basically, you're just using it as an additional layer of shadow. So I could go like that, for example, kind of sweep it all underneath that, the layer of plates there, in here. There we go. And just giving us another layer there. Here, you wouldn't do it too much there. Here you would, right there, right? And right here in between all these armor plates. And you can see, if I was doing this with null oil, I would have already stained all of this. It would have been a hot mess, right? Because I would try to come back over it, try to remove excess, and null oil may have already left stained areas in there. So this is where armor wash is just fantastic. See, I have like too much on there right now. I can just whoop, move that real quick. So it's giving me the shadow, and it really has not, it has not really dirtied up the model much. But it's given me that deep contrast that I'm looking for. I'm going to do it here under her, under the cowl there, right? Ooh, this part right there is missing a lot of the middle layer, right there. This should be a lot lighter right here. Okay. There we go. Yeah, this can be very fun to do. It's also a little tedious, but I like it because the effect that you get at the end of this is super fun. You just get a really neat horsey thing here. And then we'll get here. So back in here, just gonna reinforce the shadows in the chain and in the steel. And armor wash also even leaves a very slight sheen to it to kind of help reinforce that metallic look.
Does this character have really fast speed and good charge or something? Because I mean, It's riding a horse after all.
Yeah, she has a 5'10" move, so very fast.
I'd say, yeah.
And then she used to have rules where she could like knock people away as she's riding past them. But now she kind of has this like this polo type move where she can you can place the ball on the ground and she can hit it. She can whack it, just like if she was playing polo.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, this is a fun character. Her and Bolt were some of my favorite blacksmiths, and they're just not very competitive. But who cares? They're fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's fun to play.
They have a lot of oops, really screwed that up. They have a lot of good ball jank to them, which makes them fun. They're good for, if you like goal scoring. And I'm building this Blacksmiths team to kind of be able to do both. So it's a little more of a balanced team. Problem with the balanced team is obviously you lose some focus. I had to give up a little bit of damage to fit more balls into the lineup. And I wanted the waifu specifically. So I gave up, I passed on some players that would be really good for this team to fit my theme. I'm diversity. I'm I just like these models. They're cool. All right. So there's that. Now let's you can crash? Yeah, I'm gonna head out in a few minutes. I'm just gonna knock out this base here. Thanks for watching though. Yeah, thanks for commenting. Very fun conversation. All right. Let us go ahead and knock this out. And then I'll work on Grandma. Grandma is really gonna look terrible on camera, so might as well finish this one.
Wait, it's done?
Yeah, this one's just about done. And she's not bad. Grandma still has, I barely did anything to Grandma tonight. But that's okay.
So she's gonna be the last one painted?
She's gonna be well, technically there's still 3 more models in that box to paint, but they're not gonna be on this squad. So you can paint them if you want. Yeah.
What could I paint?
I'll show them to you after this. All right, guys. Well, that's her.
The golden obstacle?
So she's very fun. It's Ferris model. Cool gold. This is a really beat up gold look right here. Right, very weathered look to her. The shield, I think, looks really nice. The shield really looks beat up but still has some of that shimmery effect of the gold on there. We'll call it looks hammered. The cool hammered and burnished look there to that shield. Anyways, what's up?
Before we go, real quick, I forgot to ask you, how do you what kind of ink and how you been coloring the base again?
What's that?
For the basing, like the black part you just did, what was the color and what's the brand that you use?
P3 Armor Wash. They carry this at CQ, so you can call them and tell them.
No, I mean the rim, the black rim. Like, do you use a specific black color or?
I do. This isn't a true black. This is a very dark. Here's the color when it's dried and sealed. This isn't a black base. It's like this color.
Okay.
And that's Vallejo Black Gray. One of the best paints ever made, in my opinion. I love this stuff.
Yeah,
Like I
because I was
buy
gonna say.
I buy bottles of this stuff all the time because it's such a good color.
Okay.
What are-
Vallejo black gray, you said?
Yep. I'll show you the thing again. Vallejo black gray.
Got it. Okay, cool.
They do
Thank you.
not sell that at CQ.
Ah, okay. I was gonna say
They
it
don't
just
sell that at CQ.
every time you base my characters like with that black gray, I think that's probably what you use, right? I'm just thinking.
No, I use Vallejo for your stuff. I use Vallejo black.
Anyway, that
Super
it's
flat.
just legit. It's better than what I use.
This Vallejo black is, in my opinion, it's the best black for miniatures. It is the flattest, cleanest black that you can find.
Yeah.
So good. You know, when I was doing your Mythic Battle Pantheon, I was out of Vallejo black and I was using P3 Thamar black or something like that, and I was super mad about it because it just doesn't cover as even. You notice it's like real blotchy.
Yeah.
A lot of blacks will act like that. Thamar
Yeah.
black does that. Dragon black does that. Reaper pure black does that. So this black is legit. It's the best black. The only way to get it at CQ, unfortunately, is you have to buy like a $35 Infinity kit
Oh wow.
that comes with a model, which is cool, but you get eight Vallejo paints total, and this is one of them.
Can we just buy that online?
Yeah, I think if you can find it. One time I couldn't find it anywhere, and I was at CQ, and and I was desperate, so I bought that box, popped it open, took the black out, and then just handed the rest to Yvonne. I'm like, here you go. I just wanted this black is that important. Needed that. So yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah, this is what I use for your stuff, and it's great. And I use it specifically for basing stuff like that, and for like my generic like Batman stuff. So, all right, well, I'm gonna call it here. So I'm gonna
Okay,
go to
good
bed.
night.
Have a good night. Thanks for joining, Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and thanks everyone for watching. Have a good one.